Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Praise be to Allah, the creator of his slave Jesus.
In this video, we shall present and explain the view of the Hanbali Madhab and its scholars with respect to the Mutashabihat, meaning the ambiguous Quranic and prophetic passages that relate to God's nature. We shall present the statements of various prominent authorities within the school, explaining the Mu'tamid position with respect to how one approaches the Mutashabihat. We do not say that Hanbalis did not do Ithbat. What is referred to as the Taymiyan approach is a valid approach within the Hanbali school, and we acknowledge that Hanbali scholars differed in their approach to this topic. Whether or not statements of Imam Ahmed indicate that he held to Tafweed or Ithbat, the more important thing, rather, is the history of the reception of the Hanbali school with respect to the attributes as a school of thought, its first and foremost concern with the creed of its founder, and thus prominent early and later Hanbalis possessing Tafweed show that it is a serious position that has to be noted rather than simply dismissed. Contrary to what many Hanbalis today think, the creed of the Hanabila was divided between Tafweed and Ithbat. Those who held to Ithbat, such as Ibn Taymiyyah, did not denounce him with Hanabila and accuse him of heresy outright. Understanding the validity and nuance of both sides will allow us to better evaluate our respective approaches to this topic, as well as decrease sectarianism in the Ummah, as many Ash'ara, Maturidis and Atharis often dismiss or oversimplify the other schools, as if the proofs they bring can be dismissed as such. Our intent here is simply to show you the Mu'tamid authorities of the Madhab and what they believed with respect to the nature of God's attributes, and show what the more prominent stance is within the Madhab. Again, our goal is simply to elucidate the major positions of the scholars, not to claim that this makes Tafweed al-Ma'na correct and Ithbat invalid. Firstly, Imam Ahmad himself was reported to have said that the verses pertaining to the attributes are ambiguous and only Allah knows what's intended by them. Let us now investigate the report. Ibn Qudama narrates that he, meaning Al-Khalal, also said, and Ali ibn Isa informed me that Hanbal informed him, and I said, I asked Abu Abdullah, meaning the Imam, regarding the ahadith that state Allah the Glorified used to every night descend to the lowest heaven, and that Allah will be seen, and that Allah will place his qadam and the likes of it. So Abu Abdullah replied, we believe in them and affirm them, without delving into the modality or meaning, and we do not reject anything from them, and we know that which the Messenger ﷺ said is the truth when it has come through authentic chains. And we do not deny what the Messenger ﷺ said, and we do not describe Allah with more than what he or his Messenger described himself with. He is without a limit or boundary due to his statement, there is nothing like him, and he is the hearing and seeing. And those who describe him do not subtract from him any of his attributes, and we do not exceed more than what is in the Quran and the Ahadith. And so we say as he said, and we describe him as he described himself, and we do not exceed that. We believe in the Quran in its entirety, what is clear from it and what is not, and we do not refrain from affirming any attribute from his attributes. There are several things to note here, those things being, firstly, we see that Imam Ahmad left the intended meanings to Allah, known as Tafweed al-Ma'na, according to Ibn Qudama. Second point to note, when Imam Ahmad said that we do not exceed further than what is in the revelation, he meant that we affirm what has come without saying anything else, without interpretations nor explanations. Some may argue, well, what's the point in this being revealed? And it is said to them, we do not need to know the meaning, just as in the case of the letters Alif Lam Mim. And the final thing to note is that this establishes the fundamental principle within the Madhab that later scholars followed, as will be shown later. Abu Fadl al-Tamimi, the Sheikh of the early Hanabila in Baghdad, states in his book I'tiqad Imam Ahmad. He, meaning Imam Ahmad, was asked about the ahadith pertaining to the attributes before he died, and he replied, "Pass them on as they came, and believe in them if they have come with authentic chains, and do not describe Allah with more than what he described himself with, without any limit or boundary. There is nothing like him, and he is the hearing and seeing. Whoever speaks of the meanings has innovated." We see Imam al-Tamimi clearly affirm that Imam Ahmad's way was tafwid al-ma'na, and did not allow anyone to speak on the Mutashabihat. This, again, does not mean a meaning or interpretation was given or affirmed, and this means that everything is to be taken as it came, without any addition. He also states that he would also say that Allah the Exalted is eternal with his attributes. He was asked whether both Allah alongside his attributes were to be described as eternal. He replied that this was an incorrect question, since it is not permitted to separate him from his attributes, i.e. to say that they are both different and entirely separate. And the implications of one who says as such is that he is muhdath, temporal, because that which has temporal characteristics is also muhdath, and likewise, if something is said to be eternal, it shall be eternal with all of its characteristics. He negated temporality from Allah's attributes, which is in line with the creed of the Mufawwid. Whether or not the Imam was a Mufawwid is not important here, as he attributed this to Imam Ahmad, and being an early scholar, this would indicate what the Hanbalis of the time also would have believed, and naturally, the Imam himself. Qadi Abu Ya'la, the Sheikh of the early Hanbalis in Baghdad, was known as one of the three pillars within the Madhab, the other two being Ibn Qudama and Imam Ahmad himself, and his creed is well known. In his book, he quotes the narration of Imam Ahmad that we have already mentioned. Additionally, we see in Al-Mu'tamid fi Usul al-Din, he states, "And Allah the Exalted is a speaker with eternal, uncreated speech. He, the Exalted, is not subject to accidents or temporality." Al-Qadi negates temporality from Allah's attributes, which is the standard Mufawwid view. He did not believe that Allah's speech emerges within his essence. Rather, his speech is eternal. In other words, speech does not refer to the ability to speak, but rather the actual quality itself, including the Quran. Ibn al-Banna al-Hanbali was a major Hanbali jurist and scholar of usul in his time. He states in his sharh that what is obligatory is to believe that the Quran is the speech of Allah, the Exalted and Majestic, and that it is in the form of letters that can be understood and sounds that can be heard. It is not like our letters or sounds. It is like the rest of his eternal attributes. He also states, and it is obligatory to believe in this attribute, as well as others from the attributes that have been mentioned in the reports and verses of the Quran, and accept it and affirm it. If you are asked about its meaning or its explanation, then say, "I do not know of this, and I have not heard anyone from the Imams explain it." Rather, they pass it on as they heard it. We see Ibn al-Banna comparing the speech of Allah to the rest of his eternal attributes, which are eternal and are not subject to any form of temporality, meaning that his speech must also be free of such. He also says that we do not answer when asked about its explanation or meaning, which is clear tafwid al-ma'na. He also mentions Surah 3, verse 7 as proof that we are not obliged to know the meanings. Abu Faraj al-Shirazi states in his book that the Quran is the speech of Allah the Exalted. It is revealed and uncreated. It emerged from him and shall return to him. Allah spoke it from pre-eternity. The Imamiyyah and Karamiyyah state that the Quran is temporal. and temporal to them meant that Allah did not speak it from pre-eternity. Rather, they believe He spoke it at the time of creating everything, and they do not say that it is created. Imam al-Shirazi makes it clear that the Quran is eternal and not temporal. He criticizes the Karamiyyah here for saying that the Quran is temporal, while not saying that it is created, implying that whatever is temporal must be created, which is the Mufawwid view. This shows that his view is similar to that of Al-Qadi. Imam Abu Khattab is a very prominent scholar of the Madhab and is often cited by later scholars for his opinions. He has a poem in Creed in which he states the following lines: I was asked, and you affirm that Allah is over the throne, i.e. istiwa. I replied, yes, as I have been informed, Sayyidi. He replied, so what is this meaning of his istiwa? I replied, this is an incorrect question. He was asked about the meaning of Allah's istiwa, for which he did not provide an answer to. Instead, he replied that such a question was wrong, thereby implying that no meaning could be specified, and that only Allah knows what He intended by this. If He understood that there was a meaning, why would He not just provide it? If the verses of the attributes are muhkam, i.e. unambiguous, then He could just simply provide an answer and clarify, like He would have done for other muhkamat. The Imam clearly believed in tafweed al-ma'na. Ibn Aqil al-Hanbali was a major scholar of the madhab, both in fiqh and usul, and was often quoted by later scholars for his fiqhi opinions. In his book, Al-Irshad fil I'tiqad, he states, we say, Allah, glorified is He, never began to be a speaker, and His speech is uncreated. It is an attribute from amongst His attributes, glorified is He. We do not say that it is caused or temporal, and we do not say it is temporal as the Karamiyyah and Kulabiyya said, nor do we say that it is muhdath as the Mu'tazila and Jahmiyyah said. He then goes on to mention further proofs for the speech of Allah being eternal. Ibn Aqil negates any form of temporality from the speech of Allah, which is in line with the standard Mufawwid view, and shows that he agrees with his teacher, Qadi Abu Ya'la. Ibn Hubayr al-Hanbali states in his book that we have mentioned previously about this hadith, the hadith of Nuzul, and what has come about the attributes. The way of Ahlul Sunnah and the scholars of this nation is to abandon speaking of its interpretation and to pass it on as it came, while knowing that what applies for created bodies is not possible for Allah, exalted is He, and that He is not like anything and is the hearing and seeing. Ibn Hubayra makes it clear that no interpretation or explanation is given for the reports about the attributes, and that any likeness or anthropomorphism is negated. Wathiq ad-Din ibn Qudama is one of the greatest Hanbali authorities, and is known for his immense and vast knowledge in various fields. He states in Damm at-Ta'wil that the way of the Salaf, may Allah have mercy on them, is faith in the names and attributes of Allah, the Exalted, that He described Himself with in His verses, and revelation or from His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, without increasing or decreasing in them, or interpreting them or explaining them in a way that contradicts the Zahir, without making comparisons with the characteristics of creation. Rather, they are to be passed on as they came, consigning knowledge of them and their meaning to the one who spoke them. Ibn Qudama makes it very clear that the meanings are left to Allah, and that passages about the attributes are to be taken as they are. Ibn Hamdan al-Hanbali is a major Hanbali authority and an imam in both fiqh and usul. He wrote various works in different fields. In one of them, he states that Allah the Exalted is a speaker, and He speaks with eternal and existent speech that is not created, caused or temporal, and it does not resemble the speech of people. In this work, he discusses other issues related to speculative theology, and makes his tafweed extremely clear. He rejects temporality for Allah, which is the standard Mufawwid view, and in line with the beliefs of those before him. Shamsuddin Abdul Rahman states that the correct position on this is that the Mutashabihat, the ambiguous passages, includes what has come about the attributes of Allah the Exalted, faith in which is obliged, and searching for its interpretation is prohibited, such as his statement regarding istiwa. The Salaf have agreed on affirming and passing it on without looking into its interpretation, and in the verse 3:7 is evidence that Allah the Exalted is the only one who has knowledge of the Mutashabihat. We see that the Imam says that the verses about the attributes are from the Mutashabihat, and that we cannot search for their interpretations, with only Allah knowing what they truly are. This is clear-cut tafweed al-ma'na. And Najm al-Din al-Tufi is an important scholar for usul within the Hanbali Madhab. He states in his book, Sharh Mukhtasar al-Rawda, that the Mutashabihat is the opposite of the Muhkam. Its meaning is not clear, due to it having a range of meanings, and the words al-ayn and their likes, or due to lack of clarity, which is the usage of a word without the intention being made clear behind it, or what is apparent may constitute tashbih, i.e. resemblance, such as the verses and reports pertaining to Allah's attributes. For example, the wajh of your Lord shall remain. He makes it clear that the Mutashabihat include the verses on the attributes, and says that the meanings are not clear. Shamsuddin ibn Muflih is a major scholar of the Madhab and the author of various works, such as Kitab al-Furu'. He states in his book, Usul Fiqh, that the Muhkam, that which is unambiguous, is that which its meaning is clear, with no need for further clarification, and that from the Mutashabihat is the opposite, due to having a multiplicity of meaning, or lack of clarity. A group from our companions, i.e. the Hanbali scholars, and others have said that this term includes what is apparent may include tashbih, such as the attributes of Allah. He makes it extremely clear that the meanings of the verses about the attributes are to be left to Allah and are not clear in their meaning, and that it was a prevalent meaning that the zahir was tashbih. Some may mention Ibn Muflih, as well as other scholars, quoting Imam Ahmad's famous statement, Allah never began to be a speaker, and then differentiating between his statement and Al-Qadi's explanation. However, we see that Ibn Hamdan does the same. Would it now be correct to claim that Ibn Hamdan was not a Mufawwid? Obviously not. Taqi ad-Din al-Jari'i states in his book that, as for the Mutashabihah, it refers to that which has multiple meanings when the listener hears it, such as in his statement, the Surah 228, or what is unclear, such as his statement 2:237. A group from our companions, i.e. the Hanbali scholars, and others have stated that this includes what is apparent may indicate tashbih, such as his statement, Surah 15:29, 2:15, and others. He clarifies later that it is stated in the Rawdah of Ibn Qudama, after all these different opinions are mentioned, and the correct position on this is that the Mutashabihat include what has come about the attributes of Allah, the Exalted. Faith in it is obligated, and searching for its meaning is prohibited, such as his statement, Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa. The Salaf have agreed on affirming and passing it on as it has come, without looking into its interpretation. He makes it clear that the meanings are unknown, and the verses of the attributes are from the Mutashabihat, which are supposed to be passed on as they have come. He states that it must be passed on, implying that nothing must be added on or spoken of. Imam al-Qarmi, who is a very famous later Hanbali scholar and author of works in different fields, states that the majority of Ahl Sunnah, from them the Salaf and Ahl Hadith, believe in them, i.e. the attributes and the verses pertaining to them, and leave their meaning to Allah the Exalted, and we do not explain them. He also states, and know that these ahadith, such as the Kursi being the place of the Qadamain and Nuzul and the likes, are to be narrated as they came, and their meanings are to be left to Allah. He makes it clear that tafweed is the way of the Salaf, and explicitly uses the term yufawwid. He states that this is the way of Ahl Sunnah, the Salaf, and Ahl Hadith, which makes it clear that he believed tafweed was the creed of Imam Ahmad, those before him and after him, and the scholars of the Madhab. Ibn Balban al-Hanbali is a renowned scholar of the Madhab from the later period. He states in his book, "And Allah the Exalted is a speaker. He speaks with eternal and existent speech that is not created, cause or temporal, without any resemblance, likeness, or mentioning how." He also states, "And everything that has been authentically transmitted from Allah and His Messenger, or all of the scholars of His, meaning the Prophet's Ummah, it is obligatory to accept and pass it on as it came, even if the meaning is not understood." He makes his belief in tafweed clear. Some may say that he said, "But even if," therefore he knew there was a meaning, but within the context, it shows that he did not believe in it as such. Only the Mufawwidah negate temporality, or believe in hawadith, like some others hold to. He followed the same path as the Hanbali before him. His book is a summary of Ibn Hamdan's, and we see no difference between the two in their approach. So it is only possible to say that they were both Mufawwid Hanbalis. Shamsuddin as-Safarani. This Imam is one of the most well-known Hanbali scholars of the later period, and his works are relied upon by the Hanabila. In his book, he states that, "Know that the way of the Hanbalis is the way of the Salaf. They describe Allah with what He described Himself, and what His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, described Him with, without any distortion or negation, mentioning how or making comparison, because Allah the Exalted does not resemble other things. If the great Quran mentions something, and the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes Allah, glorified is His mention, then we receive it with acceptance and submission, and it is obligatory to affirm it the way that it has come, and we leave its meaning to the Most Mighty and Wise." The rest of the attributes, meaning the essential ones, such as life, power, will, hearing, seeing, and other than them, as well as the rest of the Sifat al-Khabariyya, and other than them, and the rest of the attributes of action, and their likes, are eternal for Allah, the owner of majesty, and honor, meaning they are eternal attributes for Allah, according to the Salaf of this Ummah, and the Imams of Islam. Nothing from them is temporal, because this is only the case if they are subject to temporality or accidents, and that in which accidents subsist within it itself is temporal. Exalted is Allah above such. Safarani states that we leave the meanings to Allah and negate any form of temporality from Allah's action, even saying that whatever is subject to temporality is itself temporal, which shows that he is a Mufawwid, and he followed the same approach as those before him, considering that his books are relied upon by the Hanabila. This shows that the Madhab's official position is as such. As we have demonstrated, the Hanabila have held to Tafweed al-Ma'na throughout the centuries, from the time of Imam Ahmad himself up to the time of the latecomers. We have shown that various Hanbali authorities and giants within the school have held to Tafweed, and made it clear that it is the Madhab, making this clear in the books of Usul Fiqh and Aqidah. As a final clarification, this is not in any way an attack on the approach of Ibn Taymiyyah. Rather, the purpose of this video, as stated before, was to elucidate the approach of the Hanbali scholars regarding the official position of the Hanbali school from the words of the Mu'tamad scholars themselves. وآخر دعوانا